closing. And this is where we kind of transition the talk from ideas to action. So how many of you had a lot of ideas in your community, but you're just not getting sort of the results, the final products that you're hoping for out of the community? Anyone? Right? And how many of you are measured by what happens in your, sort of what is created as a result of the effort that you're putting in your community, beyond just ideas? Okay, a few. Okay. So these folks are here today to talk about how you can get more action out of those ideas. And Isuru mentioned CoStar, which is the format that these folks have thought up and are here to talk to you more about. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce the folks from the Enterprise Development Group. Sitting on this chair over here is Herman Gehr, and then we have Lisa Friedman right behind me, and then still sitting down.
The Mets fan?
Is the lonely Mets fan.
It is lonely. It is lonely.
Laszlo Gerke. All right. So welcome.
Thank you.
So we're based here in Silicon Valley, although we work with groups all over the world. So we're going to talk about innovating at startup speed, because and also in a place like rocket space, we're surrounded by startups. And so what is it that we all can learn from startup speed, whether we're startups or much larger companies? You saw us already, we're introduced. We're partners in Enterprise Development Group, or EDG, and we tend to do three things. We first start by helping companies look outside, look into the future, and see where the world's going in their industry. Rather than just starting with their own innovation efforts, is look outside. And the reason for that is it is crazy outside now. We're from Silicon Valley, things have always seemed fast. Even in the last year or two, it seems so much faster to us. Part of that is we're living in the middle of incredible disruptions with Internet of Everything, sensors on everything, drones, changes in mobility, changes in every industry we work with is really in the midst of a revolution. So beginning to say, where's the world going? And really understanding where that is. And so often that's why seeing some of the startups, seeing new technologies. And so that's the first step, is the business strategy with where's the world going, and out of that, where do we want to go? And then the third piece is how do we use these innovation tools and practices, and it's hard because I need my hands, to get this group of people to create that future. Right? So it may be that you're trying to get 30 people to create it, 3,000, 30,000, 130,000. What is it that can enable other people to see what the leaders are beginning to see, or some of the strategists? We see where the world's going, we see what we need to become. There's these campaigns, we see the areas we need to innovate into, and how do we actually get this group to build the future? Because it's hardly ever the leaders who build it, and often, usually not the innovation team or the innovation ambassadors, it's your people and experts who are going to build that future. So those are kind of the three things that we tend to do, and so you can see why idea scale becomes really an important part of what we offer to groups we work with.
Lisa, you want to turn your mic?
What is it?
Turn it on.
It shows it's on. Doesn't sound like it's on. Did you hear any of that?
Yeah, you're protected.
Okay.
Good for the camera.
Is that better?
There we go.
All right. Thanks. Sorry about that. So we write a lot about what we do, helps us think. This is the CoStar book. That's kind of a handbook or guidebook. It actually came about from one of our clients that was a publisher that said, we love CoStar, we're a publisher, we need a book about it. If you write the text, we'll format it, so it's really quite colorful and has lots of more figures than our other books, which are more serious. Dynamic Enterprise is more about the strategy side. Clients, we tend to work with most often companies that are the icon leaders in their field. So we work with universities. We've worked with Stanford, with UC Berkeley nearby. We've worked with some of the healthcare leaders in the US and in other countries. We've worked with SRI, the largest R&D firm in the US. We've worked in all kinds of industries, so healthcare, media, insurance, mobility, transportation. But it's often, what we saw before is how many of those companies that are leaders now are likely to go away. So we work with the companies that are the current generation leaders who want to make sure that they're the leaders in the next generation. And part of what we bring to them is an innovation system. So let Herman tell us some about that.
So, as we heard already, we're going to play a little bit. Are you ready for a bit of action? A little activity? All right, we're going to do analog, but remember this is also very, very possible to do on the Idea Scale platform. It's built in actually as a feature now in Idea Scale. Now, we are often asked by the companies Lisa just talked about, what is so special about Silicon Valley? What is the secret sauce of Silicon Valley? And we've lived here for a while, right? Look at this guy. I came here 40 years ago, and so here I am. And it's a really special place, as we also heard this morning, is that there's something really going on here that is not happening anywhere else. But what is that one thing that is really unique about this place? And here it is. Fundamentally, in this place, life's a pitch, right? Life's a pitch. We have a language of exchange. We have a way of talking to each other about the cool ideas we have. And it's driven by VC, by venture capital, and by value creation. Right? Venture capitalists want to invest their money in something that's going to give them a return. That means it has to create value. Right? How is that determined? It's determined because people are not asked to put out their ideas. It's determined by the fact that they're asked to put out a value proposition. And so we studied for quite a few years. We have studied what is the kind of magic value proposition in Silicon Valley. And we looked at all the different templates. We listened to venture capitalists ask their questions over and over again. And we came up with 6 categories. And what's really interesting about these 6 dimensions is that they are magical. They drive a kind of capability on the side of the innovators that they can take full responsibility for creating real value for their ideas. It's their job, right? So if they figure out what goes into those categories, by definition, they're going to come up with something that delivers real value. And if they can't prove it to themselves that the idea that they're having is valuable, it's up to them to take it off the table or not to present it. The other thing that a good value proposition does is it creates an approach to exchanging the idea, right? It gives a pattern of exchange into a collaborative conversation that comes naturally. So let me show you what those 6 elements are. The first is, who is the customer, right? If there's no customer, there's no value, by definition, because nobody's going to want the idea. If an innovator doesn't understand his or her customer, they're not going to be able to, it doesn't matter what they come up with. It has no value, right? So who is this customer? How many of them are there? What is their pain? What is their interest? What makes them, want your solution that you're going to give them? And how much are they willing to pay for that? Secondly, what is the opportunity beyond even what the customer's needs are, right? Often, particularly today, innovation is not so much related to what customers want because they don't know it yet. It's new, it's different. I didn't know I needed this thing, right? I actually didn't want it. But I now, when I forget to put it on my arm, I haven't worn a watch in 40 years. I'm Swiss, right? That's crazy. That's against our religion. And now I have this device on my hand, on my arm, and it's very subtle. It gives me little haptic responses to stuff. When I put on my. Anyway, I don't need to go there. But this is about the opportunity. Does the innovator understand what the field of opportunity is, whether it's a new technology, whether it's some kind of social development, whether it's some kind of trend? What is that? And they need to understand and need to know, how big is it? What is it worth? So the CO, the co part of CoStar, is really fundamental to understanding whether or not there's value to the idea. Finally then, I want to know what the solution is. Okay, now an innovator has given me the background to their idea, and I can say that's a solution that really works for that reality that they have laid out, right? So this is pretty straightforward, that's the actual idea. But venture capitalists also always look at who is behind this idea. What's the team, right? You keep hearing that in Silicon Valley, failure is not a problem. Because a person who fails well learns from it and is able to talk about it in a way that makes sure that they're not going to fail the same way again is a very attractive commodity, right? Because they're going to never do that again. But venture capitalists like to invest in people that they know are not going to do that again. Right? So who is the team? Very fundamental to a good value proposition. Is the team good enough to deliver on the solution that you're coming up with? What is the advantage? Do you understand what else is already on the market, what's available, what the alternatives are? What are the alternatives? If an innovator doesn't know that, it's very risky business, right? If they don't understand the space of all the alternatives that are available, you have a problem. And venture capitalists that see innovators not understand the alternatives, that's always the question they ask, right? They always know, hey, there's already this on the market, have you thought about that? And they trap the innovators in that question. And finally, we want to know what the results are, right? So what is it that I'm going to get out of that idea? So these 6 things are magical. And they're magical, again, as I said before, because they help, and you're going to test this right now, they help an innovator be secure in the knowledge that they're going to put together at least a good pitch. Right? That they're at least going to cover the basics. And that's all we want initially. Initially, we want to just have a good enough pitch so other people can participate in it and make it better, right? The goal is not to leave the innovator alone in their soup of trying to figure out how good is this thing. The goal is to get them to a level where they can easily engage others and collaborate them at a level where they together will make this idea better. So we're going to actually experiment with this in a few minutes. We're going to do some work in groups. Lisa's going to do something really quickly before then. So you're going to walk out of here being proficient, even professional co-star creators. All right?
So just a couple of things we want to say about CoStar. One is the power of having a shared value proposition model or template. And if each innovator, and particularly when we've heard the stories where you get hundreds of innovations, and if everybody's is a little bit different shape and they cover a little bit different things, it gets very hard to compare. It gets very hard to see the value in one compared to another one, to see where they might connect. If a group has the same model, everybody's writing the C and the O, which by the way are something we say exists out in the world, the CO is out there, and the innovator kind of pulls it out of the fog and makes people see it, and then the star is their response to that and what they get to see. So if everybody kind of has this similar model, then it helps to do 3 things. It helps to help the innovator learn to kind of create the pitch, to think. So you may have 200 pages of material. You may have lots of prototypes, lots of months of trying something out, talking to customers. But if you can get the essence of it into a pitch, you really have to understand what you have. It helps the innovator understand the most essential value by having to make it short and that you can quickly communicate it to someone else. So it helps the innovator. But also it helps you can pitch to learn. So that's one of the wonderful parts in Idea Scale. You can, because people can do it in person, but you can do it across all kinds of boundaries if you have a platform to do that. But it's not yet just a pitch to select. It's to pitch because very early you can go get collective intelligence into those ideas. And so often when we run campaigns, there'll be a couple of rounds. The first round might be just getting feedback to the pitches, and then actually taking it when the innovators have gathered it and changed it, and each feedback is gold to know to pitch to for the resources. And you don't know, what's nice about something like Idea Scale and that pitch to learn is that you don't know what jobs people have had in their past careers. You don't know who their neighbor or their significant other or their family members are. And we've seen amazing things where someone can say, and because they have the same framework, they'll go, oh, here's a customer group that I've worked with that would be great. They could really use what you're describing, the product or service. Or they'll say, oh, and a team member who would like to do this. Here's a team member who would be fantastic for you. This is my next door neighbor. We actually had this with one of the clients where they said, well, we need to develop this technology. And the person said, oh, my next door neighbor has a startup. They already have that technology. So it just helps. If everybody's used to using those same magic letters, they know how to give the input really quickly so that it helps the speed and pace of innovation. So that's basically that having that power of shared language and practices and tools makes everything go faster, helps you identify the value and gets you to success. Makes the value propositions as strong as they can be, and then you put them in the competition. Then you see who gets the resources. And we also see that it's a global competition. So if you're doing it, probably a bunch of people in other places are also doing it. So it's the other reason you want your value proposition to be as strong as it can be. And the last thing I want to show, kind of before we get active ourselves, is I think Nick, when he first talked, said here's there's an innovation process, and a lot of big companies have an innovation process, and how many can do them. A lot of times they do need startups to help them. Just give it to a startup and let them do it. But not everybody can move to where the startup is. And so you'll probably do a mix of both. So this is a proposition for what are the teams that are still in your big companies or are smaller companies. What we find is we've kind of identified 5 steps, but I just want to point to the 3 that are left out. What we find is the ones people tend to do are generate breakthrough ideas, and then they select. They go to realize the innovation, they select, they fund those. The ones we see left out are the ones that start at the beginning. Explore the opportunities. Look forward. Look at what everybody else is doing first. There's some conferences here called the front end of innovation. But the front end starts with let's brainstorm and all the ways to be creative and brainstorm. And so we think the front end is really understand how disruptive it is, because it's almost always surprising what's already existing out there. Coming to Rocket Space, seeing what some of the startups are doing already here is a great way to get to do that as well. The other one that gets left out a lot is that optimized value. Don't just go from your first value proposition to put it into the competition and see which ideas are best or innovations. Actually go through that phase of make it better and better and better. Go through that time where you really optimize and find the real value in it. Might also include the prototyping and prototyping, and then make some of the choices. And then the last one on launching the enterprise is sometimes the ideas that are chosen and teams that are chosen and they win and they get the funding, they may be a technology expert. They may have the best idea, but they may not know everything about launching a startup. When you see startups here at Rocket Space, they'll often have a number of key roles, right? They'll have a technology person or a business person or marketing, customer acquisition person. There's lots of branding resources around. There's a network to make it possible. Even if you're doing that inside, how do you coach those innovators and entrepreneurs? How do you mentor them? How do you do network with them? Break down barriers for them, do everything you can to help them succeed. So even after you've funded it, there is a whole other phase about what resources can you bring, because it might be a great idea, but it might just be they need those other resources too.
Let's just add something real quick. So the whole idea is that co-star starts here, and it can be a really crappy little co-star that is just after you had an idea in the shower as you were in the morning. But co-star stays with you throughout, right? It goes all the way to then getting richer and richer, enriched, and becoming a business plan, all the way to a go-to-market strategy, right? It's still those 6 fundamental categories that just get expanded and enriched as they develop over the time.
Great. So we are now going to divide into 3 groups. One group will stay here. There's 2 circles of chairs out there, and Rob was going to help us figure out how to, because I don't know how many people are over there to figure out.
Everybody has to play. Everybody has to play.
You willing to play?
Except for the
Am I setting things
videographer.
up? Okay. So we need about 15 people to stay in here. So Laz is going to go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's almost close enough that if this side stays here, like maybe 1 or 2 people go, and then other groups, let's just go to one of the other 2 groups, and let's hope it works out.
Side comes with me.
I can't see how many people are back behind the screen.
Did you get your cell phone? It's in my pocket. Okay.
Alright, Laszlo.
So like you've actually run a campaign.
Am I on?
That said like you're in your field, your description you have to follow the co-star family.
Right, yeah. If you have time, say something about the campaigns. I think that's in there anyway.
About the campaigns?
About campaigns and how to run it. Their campaigns around particular issues.
I mean, how to use Idea Scale to run campaigns?
Well, just the fact that there's open ideas versus.
Okay, I guess I could talk about that.
All right.
Okay. Shh. Can I pull you all back together for one last little bit? All right, so you all, for the first time, thank you for rolling up your sleeves. It's an innovation program, so I appreciate your willingness to sort of pioneer and throw you in there and write your first ever CoStar value proposition. Was it hard? No, that's not so bad, right? It takes a little work, but you can do it in 5 seconds in the back of a cocktail napkin, or you can spend weeks and months coming up with a $100 billion idea that you have to develop, right? But anyway, I appreciate you doing that. You also got a chance to spend a moment in a RISE session. So let me just do a couple of quick debriefs about that. So first of all, RISE session flips your typical presentation on its head when it's done right. Normally, if somebody said, we've got a new product meeting, and you got an hour, somebody talks for 50 minutes, and you have 10 minutes of Q&A. This goes the exact other way. You got to present in 10 to 15 minutes, and then it's 45 minutes of Q&A. Because it's all about getting smarter about your idea. Get the right people in the room who can help you build it as fast and as efficiently as you can. Does that make sense? The same sort of notion as lean and all the rest of those. How do I get smart fast? And I get smart fast by getting smart people in the room and helping me figure it out. Item number one. So what was it like playing a role? That's a little odd. Somebody assigned me to be the eyes of the customer or a builder or a fan. Any thoughts? Was that difficult, easy? Did you jump into it? Yeah, no, I'm getting head nods. Not so bad, not so bad. So one of the interesting things we had as we developed these ideas and learned from our colleagues is how different cultures actually really need this kind of support if they're going to work in teams. So have any of you seen what Parliament looks like? James, you're here, right? You ever seen what Parliament looks like for the BBC? And what a bloodbath that is when they really get going? So we worked for the BBC for years. Right? And to get an idea through the gauntlet of criticism that the BBC can unleash is almost impossible. And we'd have these funny moments where someone would present an idea and everybody dogpile on top of them, and they'd walk out of the room and somebody say, I think they liked it. And the person was crawling back. Right? If you weren't a professional TV maker, it was completely over the top. So the thought of slow down a minute, honor the fact that you have somebody in the room who's given some thought to a really big idea, and they're presenting it out, tell them what you liked about it. Let's start there. Let's have a platform at which we can build together. There's plenty of room to critique it, right? Then you got to assign the task of being somebody who was a builder. Now we have the other cultural extreme. We have lots of Japanese clients. What happens when you have your Japanese clients in a room, in a group environment, and you present an idea? That's the sound. You guys did it perfectly, right? They default to hierarchy. Right? And they don't want to embarrass anybody. It's totally true, right? So, but, yeah.
I have just one question.
Yes, thank you. So what do you need? The minute you assign them a role, all of these bright, talented Japanese engineers or whoever we're working with have a million suggestions and ideas. But not if I don't assign them the role. They will not play in a group environment. So I'm just saying some of the cultures we work with exacerbate some of the fundamental challenges of getting group feedback and people to take the best advantage of the time.
And that's true for in-person or online.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's playful things, right? How do you
Yeah.
get that same feedback online?
Why do you think we have the presenter not talk for the first 3 rounds of that feedback? Why? Absolutely. They start getting defensive. Imagine if you spent weeks preparing for this, right? And the first thing you do is get a bunch of negative feedback. You start fighting with the people. So you got to give them a chance to take a deep breath. You're going to hear what you did right. And then, of course, everybody gets to weigh in at the end at the all play. So nothing gets lost. I'm not asking anybody to be dishonest or not suggest or get their ideas out. But
The young woman, Jack, she said it was really kind of wonderful. Just
yeah, it is liberating. Yeah.
Just sit there and take it in. Like you don't have to. Yeah.
All right, last point on this one. All right. Why did we insist that you delivered in CoStar? Not just because we wrote a book and we like it all, but most importantly, absolutely most importantly, it's the other side of the equation. If CoStar is a framework that helps me develop my idea and present it in a compelling way, for everybody else, it is the way in which you get helpful feedback. I can now listen to your idea. If you presented your idea in any wild and crazy way, I would be struggling to figure out where are the strengths, where are the weaknesses, how do I work with you to make it better. But If you have to stick to COSTAR, I can go, all right, do they really understand the customer? Do they really know what that unmet need is? Do they have a place in which they can actually launch this right away? What's the problem with solving? How big is the opportunity? I can listen for every one of those points, and every place that I have some confusion or I see a gap, I can give you ideas or suggestions about how to make it better. Does that make sense? It is absolutely an accelerant for improving your ideas, not just for developing them and presenting them, but also for getting feedback about what it is. It becomes the foundation to your proof of concept plan. You can ask every single one of those questions, say, what are the hypotheses I need to test? Be able to determine whether this idea is really, really of value. It's one of those things. It's two sides of the same coin, but a really powerful pairing when you get the two of them together. And as Lisa described earlier, having common language and practice, it's wonderful to go to some of our clients, and when a new idea emerges, we don't have to fight about how we're going to work on it. Everybody goes, all right, let's start the CoStar. And we start working on it. Your idea can be as creative and as wild and as wonderful as you want, not limiting you in any way. Your S can be anything, as long as it creates value at the end of the day. And the way you know that is by answering those other 5 questions. Does anybody in the marketplace care? Is that opportunity big enough? Do I have a team that can help me deliver this to the marketplace? Right? Is it unique and different enough for the rest of the world? And what kind of results, benefits to the customer, and returns to my institution? All right, now, here's my personal fun part, having worked with this stuff for a few years. I could speak just a moment ago. It's a little baby I've created because I've been working on this for a while. Our own software, which we think is a beautiful complement to the Idea Scale platform. It allows you to have CoStar software. So we wrote a book, and we turned this book into a digital sort of e-learning tool. Why would we do that? We would do that for a couple of reasons. Our clients were saying, you guys are great at incremental improvement with your innovation stuff, but we are not getting enough big ideas, things that will move the needle. We're not getting enough bold ideas, things that will actually change the game in our favor. We're not getting enough better ideas, things with a higher percentage of success rate. How can we do more of this? And we realized there's a reason for that. It's actually hard to do this, right? The bar for big, disruptive, bold, creative ideas is high. They're harder to conceive, they're easier to kill, and quite frankly, you just don't know enough at the beginning. It's not like the paradigm, sometimes it's used in crowdsourcing, where we put lots of ideas in, we shake the pan looking for gold, and we find the nuggets, and we go, yes, this will work, this will work. Big ideas, you don't know enough in the beginning about the desirability, the feasibility, the profitability. It's more like origami, where you've got an idea that's a blank piece of paper or a hint of it, and you've got to fold and bend it into something that the world really wants. It's evolving and changing all the time, and that's the work that needs to be put in. So we helped our clients with an online tool that teaches you how to create a value proposition, how to do an elevator pitch, how to create a proof of concept plan, and how to do a fundable approach. So we can help amateur innovators, which most of our companies are filled with, right? They're not professionals, entrepreneurs, or venture capitalists. And at the end of the day, they become more confident and capable. They feel like they have support. So your group is lucky enough you have ambassadors who can answer all those questions. But what if every single person had a chance to work with online software that allowed them to do that? Then you could do your campaigns and also your individual ones. Could I give you a peek at what it looks like? I'm sorry, I feel like I'm over marketing, so I can shut up in a minute. The other thing, I think it becomes a e-learning and a resource tool. So for all your managers who are looking to develop their staff and their employees, you can drive them back to your platform, which is where you want them to keep coming back and keep using the platform. Somebody's got an idea. Lots of offline conversations happen that you can now actually take advantage of and send them back. Go look at our platform. It'll walk you through and teach you how to do that kind of stuff. So my last point, and I'm done with this, is one of the reasons I'm up here enthusiastic is because I'm looking for volunteers. We just finished all our beta testing on this with a number of different groups and universities and campuses around the world. I have Universal Music in Berkeley who are signed up and working with me, but I'd love to get a couple more. I'm happy to do it at a low cost to pilot it out. I'm shamelessly plugging a chance. So if anybody wants to play with me and get into the spirit of what this might look like, and we're looking to be able to collaborate with IdeaScale and find the right few people who would be good resources. Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, fair enough. Yeah. So each of the 5 stages has instructional videos walking you through how to do it. Each of the CoStar letters has instructional videos to take you through it. There are over 100 tips that walk you through each of the stages and all the outputs you can produce and package up.
It's not a platform like IdeaScale.
It's not.
You can collaborate with other people. It's just for you yourself to put together. It's kind of like the exercise you just did.
Yes.
It's basically
Very good.
that template in an online format so that you can put together a cool pitch.
It's great.
And then you can share it with others, by sending them an email or something like that.
It's a startup kit for idea champions,
Right.
which is why it needs a platform so that you can collaborate if you want to, but it's all about that person who has an idea and how do I develop my own concept around that. Jen. The other thing now it's perfect, right? Because cool. Okay. See, the other thing we've found too is it's an investment in the innovators, right? It's teaching them and helping them to be more successful. And one of the places innovators struggle a lot is in that pitching part. We just did a little bit of an exercise, but for most of our employees, it's a big deal to walk into a room with a group of executives under limited time frame. They don't know your idea. They have different agendas for your idea, and you have that moment to shine. This is where you are co-starring. It's you and your idea, and they're investing as much in you as your idea. Right? You have to look confident and professional, and they have to be, if I'm going to spend $50,000, $100,000, $500,000, again, you don't use it for incremental improvement. It's only for your bigger ideas. But they're investing in you, and it's quite scary. Many people have stage fright and don't enjoy doing this at all. Never mind that particular moment of showtime is a very difficult moment to be in front of your executive group. And it could be a career-changing moment, right? So we have all kinds of tips in there about how to deliver public speaking and sound more coherent than I am at the moment. Must be the end of the day. You have a look like you're thinking, yeah, there, I could sense a yeah, sorry.
So given the various use cases and the variety of clients we have here today and how different organizations and companies and government are using these different platform tools, at what times do you see that a process as tested as CoStar can be too rigid in terms of a rigid template? A few slides ago you mentioned being bendable and flexible and the speed of innovation. But
Yeah.
having these, what seem to be the custom template of fairly rigid criteria, to me at least, I could think of use cases where everything doesn't fit into these boxes. So can you talk to maybe some of those times and how you might deal with that?
Well, I guess did you have a thought right after that? What? Yeah.
I think that it is actually what we have found, as we have found in at least the group that I was in, that these are actually not rigid boxes. They are dimensions that have to be covered. That if you don't cover them, an investor is going to say, what about the customer? Or what about the team? Or these are the questions that you have to cover. What you do within that box, you can go anywhere, right? Is the customer your internal customer, the person, is it a process innovation that is going to change my relationship with the guy down the line, at Toyota or in a manufacturing environment? Build it out. At the BBC, the customer, instead of solution, they called it the story.
And they had consumers instead of customers consuming the
What we
content.
found is that certain fundamentals actually liberate people. What you do inside of that, it changes, you get feedback, it adds another flavor. So we have quite the opposite experience. Great question, because I think
So, and just a helpful, just a helpful distinction too is if you're pitching to people who've never heard CoStar, you don't have to pitch that way. You don't have to force it, right? It helps you, but you don't have to. But if your organization commits to it, you will find you can do innovation so much faster than you could, because instead of everybody doing it willy-nilly, it's like one of those questions, what must be the same such that everything else can be different? If we just agree that we're going to work through a value proposition process for our larger ideas, it goes much faster rather than slowing people down. I'm sorry, Lisa.
Another example we had where people changed it a bit is they had, we were working with the Air Force, and they were looking at sustainability at military bases around the U.S. and what were some of the sustainability, energy, clean tech, what were some of the things they could do, and they made it eCoStar. So they actually started not just with the O for the opportunity, but they wanted to know what were the real environmental pulls and challenges and urgencies, and so they kind of started with that, so they kind of added onto it. So there are ways that people can take it and make it their own, but it is hard to leave something out, like Herman said, because usually your investors want to know those other letters.
Or a sponsor or somebody. I feel like we should wrap up. Greg, please.
Yeah, so along the same lines, this certainly seems like something for a large organization or an ongoing innovation organization. Seems very applicable. I work with a Clean Tech Open. So for an entrepreneur that has an idea that they're following, I can see how the CoStar exercise would be appropriate. But
Yeah.
particularly with the product you're talking about, it seems like it's in a larger organizational context as an entrepreneur theoretically would only use it once, even if
Yeah,
internally
so one of the groups I'm trying to get is trying to find incubators willing to use it as a standard practice to get into the either incubator or accelerator.
CoStar or
Yeah,
1 hour innovation.
Well, either, but 1 hour innovator is what I'd like to do. The 1 minute.
A la Ben Stiller, right? The 6-minute app.
The 1 minute of.
Maybe you have to drop down the timer.
There we go.
Yeah,
But no,
1 hour innovation for an entrepreneur, you're like, no, I bought into this a year ago. I'm fine.
Good.
It was 6 seconds, right?
Yeah, no, very good. But you're right. So entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs are definitely the two audiences we would go after. That's good. Thank you. All right, let me get out of here and you close it up. Now, thank you guys.
Good job, man.
And my partners.
Thank you.